Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Charlton Live, sponsored by the British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom and Bathroom Installation. My name is Louis Mendes. This is the big match preview as we gear up for Nathan Jones's first match in charge of the Addicts, a massive relegation six-pointer over at Reading on Saturday. Joining me to look ahead to that huge clash of the League One Titans. First up, top right, Tom Wallin. How you doing, Tom?
Yeah, much better than last time I spoke to you on this podcast, that's for sure. So, yeah, all good.
Welshman in charge. It's like your dreams come true.
Happy days. Well, just a manager in charge, and I haven't seen Charlton play since we last met or last caught up. So, yeah, I'm in good spirits. So, yeah.
There we go. And also joining us, bottom of the screen, a man who I'm sure doesn't mind the fact a Welshman's in charge anyways. Is Lewis Cat. How you doing, Lou?
Evening, chaps. Yeah, good. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm trying to balance up, like trying to wind Tom up with the whole Welsh thing. We've actually it's nothing I've ever really cared about at all. But you've got to try and wind Tom up to the extent. But yeah, how are you feeling ahead of Saturday?
A wide mixture of emotions. I think nerves, excitement, and very very excited. To be honest, I think the positive feel around the place since Nathan's come in's been well overdue. I feel so. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Saturday, but also not ignoring the magnitude of the game, that's for sure.
Excellent stuff. So on this evening's show, then we will hear from the new Addicts manager, and he is a manager, not a head coach. Nathan Jones had his first press conference today, so he met a few members of the press. We'll hear a couple of clips from that. We're also going to hear from Matt Lansley of the Elm Park Royals, who's going to give us a lowdown on what's been going on over there. We want to hear from you guys as well. Loads of you already in the chat. Evening to Alan, to Lawrence, to Sam, to Paul, Will, Hell, Let Loose, Dudley's in there, Robert's in there, David, Carl, Ian. There's loads of you in there. Make sure you have your say. What you're feeling ahead of Saturday's trip over to the Madstad or the Select Car Leasing Stadium, whatever it's called these days. Let us know how you are reacting to the arrival of Nathan Jones. Obviously, we talked about the fact he was coming in on Sunday. It has been made official since then. How are you feeling about his press conference as well? What changes would you like to see to the side for Saturday's game over at Reading? I think first things first, we should hear from the new Addicts boss then. So as I said, he had his first press conference earlier on today. The questions being asked here by Nick Godwin from BBC Radio London.
Please to come
here. One, the potential in the football club, but potential is only good if you fulfil it. Then certain things when I spoke to the owners and the people, the decision makers of this football club, they're fully behind, a process, longevity, and trying to build something solid, and doing it the right way. And then you've got the fan base, you've got the infrastructure here. You come in and you don't feel like you're in a League One football club, and that's so all those things really. But I'm excited to be here, and it's a club. But people say that some people I've always been a Charlton fan. I've had Charlton in my heart since I had a good year here with good people. Chris Powell, Paul Hart, all the people I worked with here and built relationships, and I actually enjoyed my time here, and I want that again. I want to bring results, and I want to enjoy my time here because it's a great place.
How close were you to getting back into all this before this job came along?
I probably had about 8 or 9 opportunities to take jobs, at various levels, as I said. but I knew I had to choose it carefully. Ironically, I chose when I left Stoke. I chose my one carefully, but when Luton came in, it was a kind of a no-brainer.
Was Millwall one of those clubs that?
This is not going to name anything. I want to be disrespectful to anyone, but there's lots of I had lots of opportunities which I was pleased with, and I was able to choose the right time to come back in, and I was under no pressure to take a job in terms of that, and I believe I've chosen well for lots of reasons.
How should fans take the position that you hold, which is manager rather than head coach? Is that just semantics, or does that mean something?
No, it means something. The football club, when we spoke, the football club wanted to build something, which means that it's not a head coach role; it's a management role. So if I'm if I'm going to be judged on certain things, then there's certain things that I need to be involved in, and that's all it is. And we're all really aligned with everything.
So let's say recruitment, for example, is it going to be more of you telling them what you want rather than you being given?
No, it's a process. We will build processes here with good people. Andy Scott will build the recruitment department. We'll add certain things to the recruitment department, and we're all involved in it. And it's a process. No one human being will build something. There's a process here which will encapsulate a lot of people, but everyone has to be aligned. The important thing is the process and the alignment, and as long as we've got that, no egos, no anything. Yeah, I'll get final say. If we don't want to sign a player, then we won't. But at no point will the people here force me to do that, because that's not how they've been. And these are good people, and I've come here to work with good people. It's not just a football club; it's good people, and that's what I'm excited about as well.
Last one, if that's all right. Yeah. And the situation at the bottom table is not great. How confident are you of being able to keep Charlton up?
Well, if I didn't, I wouldn't be here, So it's we've got to win football games, but you got to win football games whatever. If we were mid-table now and we're like, okay, well, if we had 44 points now, we think we only need 2 wins, but I got 2 wins and lost 14 games. Would that be a good start? Right? It wouldn't be. Yeah, we wouldn't be in the relegation, but it wouldn't give us the platform. So the important thing now is we build a platform that can then turn into a springboard for next year. That's the important thing. But we have to win games. That's the most important thing.
There we go. That's the new Addicks manager, Nathan Jones, and speaking to Nick Godwin from BBC Radio London earlier on today. What's been your initial impressions then of the Welshman, Tom, as he arrives in SE7 and what we've heard from him over the last few days?
Yeah, usual talks a good game, doesn't he? And it's easy to do that without results at this stage. I think lots of people have been quick to dismiss the Stoke and particularly the Southampton performances, and I think there's a lot of reasons that you can do that. Particularly Southampton was a bit of a basket case at the time, but we have to remember that those things still happened. So they're the bits of how I'm feeling where I'm kind of tempering expectation, but more so than that, I think I'm just very excited. I don't remember a manager coming in that I've kind of believed could actually do something long term since, well, I can't really think, probably since Powell. Bowyer sort of fell into the role, didn't he? And it looked like maybe he could, but I feel like if he is backed, this is the first manager where you're like, okay, yeah, I can see there's potential there. And I think with someone like Dean, that connection was there, but maybe that long-term not, and maybe the managerial experience wasn't quite there. Whereas with this, we've got that as well. So he ticks a huge amount of boxes. I think lots of people have spoken about the need for somebody with a Charlton connection. And I know some people say, look, I don't care about that. Others people point to every single successful season we've had tends to have been under somebody who does have a Charlton connection. I lean more towards that side. I don't think it's essential, but it plays a big part. And you look at the sold out away end, the increase in tickets and selling out again and again and again for this Reading game. You look at just the chat on social media, which doesn't speak for every fan, of course, but generally the mood around the club has just elevated so much. And for all Apple's talked about acting, you see those clips of him on the training ground, and there's a manager who is clearly showing some passion. And whether you do believe that it's just acting or not, there is a manager there that is clearly very keen to succeed. And I'm sure Michael Appleton did want to succeed, but we never really felt that, and we never really saw that. And yeah, you just know the atmosphere is going to be incredible at Reading. And And if he can gain a bit of momentum, move us away from that relegation zone, we then start to focus on next season straight away under him. So, yeah, I'm wary because we're still in that relegation battle, but largely I'm very excited. And I think long term now there might actually be a plan there, which is good.
Yeah, well, yeah, he certainly speaks like he's a man who's going to try and build something long term, Lewis. And part of that, I guess, is you look at the fact that he has come in as manager rather than head coach. I was asked this on Sunday before everything was official on the club website, and I said, well, I assume he'll be the head coach because that's how we've operated over the last however long since the new lot have come in. But clearly they've not gone that way. He was asked about that there. It sounds like he's going to be more involved with maybe aspects of the club away from purely on the grass, which seems to be the catchphrase of the season, on the grass, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. If only we were better on the grass, eh? Yeah, look, I think for me, the manager head coach title towards the start of the season, I didn't really understand the differences, but I suppose a manager has that little bit more involvement in the actual management of the club as well as the first team, which I think at the moment it could be argued that the culture around the football club this season and before that really hasn't been there. It's been off it. You look at the side on paper, we shouldn't be where we are, and that can only come down to sort of mentality and stuff like that. And I think having someone like Nathan, who is, as Tom said, he's a fiery character. He's passionate. He'll get everyone behind him. That will translate onto the players, and it gives everyone a bit of a boost. And I think the fan reaction speaks for itself, really. So look, I'm really happy that he's been given that manager title. What that means differently to the likes of Appleton and Dean before him, I don't know. Like in his presser there with Nick, he sort of said like it's the manager role, but it's not like I get the final say on things. It's a team effort. So how much difference there is between the two, I don't know, but I think there are probably things that go on behind the scenes that we don't all see, that maybe the head of the first team should have more involvement in. Maybe that's where Appleton and Dean weren't getting that. So getting someone in with the experience of Nathan Jones to come in and try and sort of give everything a bit of a cuddle, to be honest, try and rebuild that culture, get everybody on side, get everyone fighting for each other, running through brick walls for him, and hopefully that will translate onto the pitch and we'll start pulling ourselves away from this precarious position we're in at the moment, because it's a tough time to come in where we are. Confidence very, very low. I think him coming in's given everybody a bit of a lift, which is crucial, and we've seen that evidently with the ticket sales for Saturday. So taking a sold out and then some away end to Reading is testament to how his appointment's been received by everybody. So look, I think it's a really, really positive. There's obviously a hell of a job to be done, and these fairy tales within Charlton always seem to have never get off to the easiest of starts. You've got to remember the excitement around Chrissy Powell taking the job, and that didn't start as well as we'd liked, and it took time. So what's the most important thing in all of this? And I think we'll probably go on to talk about his contract shortly, but he's got to be given the time, and that's not something that managers have been afforded here for a while. So look, I'm excited to have him in. I think he's a really good manager for us in this moment. I think his passion and stuff is the complete polar opposite to what we've become used to with Appleton. So let's roll on Saturday, and hopefully the Jones era gets off to a flying start.
Yeah, Tasha said that the intensity seems a cut above what we've had for a long time. Even just a clip of training they put out the other day. And again, it doesn't mean anything what we see in training. I'm sure there would have been plenty of coaches who could speak the way that Nathan does, but it just felt like he was demanding a bit of them. And, we really want to see that play out. As Lewis mentioned there, it's a long-term contract. Charlton Fan 18 pointing out he's here till 2028. So it's a 4.5 year deal, Tom. Obviously doesn't necessarily mean anything because he could get sacked after 6 months like the rest of them do, but hopefully if things do go well, then that will stand us in good stead for him to come in and build properly. It was interesting that they hadn't revealed what the length of the contract was until today, but that is that again, when you get a manager of that ilk on paper, then it's good to see that he's tied down for a while as well.
Yeah, 100%. And this is what we spoke about when Dean got sacked. It's what I kind of spoke about with Appleton getting sacked as well. Although I agreed that Appleton had to go, you need that consistency. You need a manager in place, given time, given backing, and given financial support, and the only thing I can give the board credit for is they tried to do that with Appleton for as long as possible, and it just became untenable. For me, they backed the wrong man. That was the problem there. We don't know how it's going to work out with Nathan Jones, but as I say, I think already you look at the response to him coming in compared to when Appleton came in, chalk and cheese in terms of how the fans have reacted, how the club feels already in such a short space of time. He needs backing now. I don't know who the players that came in over January were, whether they were Andy's, whether they were Appleton's, whether already Nathan Jones had got any say because they knew that they were thinking of getting him out, whatever. So there is going to inevitably, for the 8th, 9th transfer window in a row, be an element of rebuilding in the summer once again. But if they can back him properly instead of a half back in the summer and then getting rid of him in the autumn, if they can back him fully and he can comfortably say he has got the squad he wants come the start of next season, we've got half a chance. It's as simple as that. The league is probably going to be stronger next year. We have to admit that. That is if we're even in League One next year. So it's not going to be easy by any stretch. But this consistency starts at the top. And again, I will give the ownership a little bit of leeway in the fact that this season started just all over the place. And they've said themselves, look, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that we've got to get sorted. I feel, as I say, that they rushed into Appleton. I don't think that was right. And to be honest, don't think they should have ever got rid of Holden in the first place. But we're here now. His first step is obviously keep us up. That is all that matters over the next 7 or 8 games. Get us away from that relegation zone, get a bit of momentum. And then he can start thinking, okay, what do I want over the summer? How much money do I need? How many players do I need? And what do I want to do with this squad next year? And if he has a good run up at that, we've got half a chance. And if the season starts badly next year, we cannot just bin him off October, November, because then we're in the cycle again. But you'd hope with the caliber of manager we've brought in at the level we are, that won't be the case. Obviously, we don't know. But yeah, it's as I say, it's really exciting. And it hasn't felt like this for a little while. And yeah, I think that contract supports him and backs him. And they know there's going to be a heavy payout if they choose to get rid of him. So fans are behind him. Ownership seems to be behind him. It's all in his hands now. So yeah, no pressure, Nath. Like, get on with it.
Yeah, with those contracts, it always tends to be, even if it's 4.5 years, it probably still would only be paid off for like a year if he were to get sacked. But hopefully, it won't come to that. As Tom sort of said there, Nathan Jones, according to Dean, has already got the fans behind him. We would have been lucky to take 1,500 under Appleton to Reading. The away end has been sold out twice. Probably could have taken another 1,000 as well. Yeah, certainly people getting behind him, which is. Yeah, good to see people getting on board. In the whole press conference, you would have heard, if you watch it on the club website, he was asked a little bit about what he's learnt at his previous club. So Rob Waghorn tweeted in saying, I hope Nathan will stop being constantly asked about Stoke Southampton. The press seem to think he is box office. The job he has to do here is more suiting to his character. So yeah, he really didn't want to get drawn into his what we did learn at his previous roles, because he said it himself. It's pointless now looking back at it and speaking about what went wrong at Southampton, because that's in the past. So you can understand from a journalist's point of view why it's asked. You can understand from the manager's point of view why it wasn't asked. But it will be interesting if we can sort of work out what he has learned. When he was at Southampton, it's not a nice thing to say, but he became a bit of a joke figure amongst sort of the press and Premier League fans, and Southampton fans certainly aren't very keen on him, just with some of his statements in the press. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if he sort of reins that in a little bit, Lewis, or the fact that he is slightly in a position where the spotlight won't be on him as much as it is in the all-encompassing Premier League, then maybe that will suit him a little bit as well. He could be that sort of big fish and do what he does, but slightly go under the radar with us.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the Southampton job was an incredibly difficult position to take up for anybody, and he's a manager that was stepping up from the Championship into the Premier League and taking over a club that were in a bit of turmoil. I mean, Southampton had been mismanaged and the recruitment had been poor for seasons before Nathan Jones got there, and they were always sort of flirting with a drop, and it just became their turn, and he went in there probably at the wrong time. And yeah, no doubt there'll be things that he maybe wishes he'd done differently or had worked out differently, but it's a hell of an experience. Even the 14 games or whatever he took for Southampton, that's still really good experience. I mean, he beat Manchester City in that time in a cup, the semi-final, quarter-final, whatever it was. That that's no mean feat to go and beat the best team in the world effectively. So look, he's obviously a really, as you say, he's a very lively character, very vocal character, very charismatic. And I think when you're maybe managing the sort of basement club in the Premier League, obviously the press is much more, much more wider scale, playing in the top division. And there were obviously performances from Southampton that weren't very good, and there were results that weren't very good, and they were struggling. And he was in the spotlight for that. And being the character he is, he was probably a little bit vocal about it, and that probably rubbed a few people up the wrong way. But I've got a few friends that are Southampton fans, and they really want him to do well here. So, I mean, I try and ignore all the negative stuff about him from Stoke and Southampton, because I think he just took both jobs at the wrong time. When you speak to Luton fans about him, even in the position they're in now, where they've got Rob Edwards and they're absolutely flying, they have such a high respect and high regard for Nathan Jones and what he did. And I think that the job he did there, even over the two spells, in turning that football club into into firstly a League Two promotion winning side and then a League One side that were competing for the top. He obviously left before they came up with us that season. And then they've stabilised in the Championship. He's gone back there. He's made them playoff contenders and promotion contenders. He's obviously left to go to Southampton. But every time he's gone to Luton, we've seen that forward trajectory. And hopefully, coming into here, a bit of familiarity. He said in his interview, there's lots of people here that he knows. The fans have already taken to him really well. Hopefully, he sees this as a long-term project where he can have a very similar effect. Hopefully, we don't need to worry about the League Two part, but he can bring us forward, as we say, get this season done, try and finish as strong as we can, and have that big rebuild in the summer, as Tom referenced to, and then have a real go at it next season. And hopefully, it becomes a new chapter for us that we can all invest in for the long term, and not be looking at this in 6 months, 8 months time, looking back at, it didn't work out with Nathan, we're looking for another manager, because we can't keep chopping and changing managers. As a football club, we did our best when we stuck with continuity and stuff like that. And we've had too much chopping and changing. And you look at where we are now, and that's got to have some impact on it. So look, the long-term contract is obviously good as well. Maybe not always worth the paper it's written on, but it's a statement of intent from the owners, maybe that they hope that Nathan's going to be the person that's going to be here for the long term and take the club forward to where we want it to be and to where they probably want it to be as well.
Yeah, Dean says, and who has done anything at either Southampton or Stoke? I mean, it's very similar to the point I made on Sunday. I think when Jimmy Stone was on, like particularly Stoke, they've been in the same sort of end of the Championship table for ages now. No one's going in there and changing it. Paul's saying he only had 3 months at Saints. What exactly was he supposed to do in that time? And bear in mind, I'm fairly confident those 3 months were sort of either side of the World Cup break as well. So for like a month of that, I don't think they were even playing, and he probably would have had a few players not there. Which would have taken a bit of an effect on it as well. Martin's saying, Louis, we're all too happy and optimistic. Can you just show us a Michael Appleton clip so we can pinch ourselves? The season starts. Now, I was thinking slightly earlier, like there's been 2 or 3 Thursday shows probably since January where we've all gone into it really buzzing. Like we've either made a few signings or something's happened, and then the football has sort of brought us back down to earth quite quickly. So hopefully that won't be the case on the weekend over at Reading. A few people asking about injury updates. We've got another clip with Nathan in the preview of the Reading game slightly later on in the show where he does speak a little bit about injuries. I've sort of been told he's not one to like give massive like updates on injuries. He likes to play his cards close to his chest. But we'll hear what he did say later on in the show. I mean, it's referenced Tom slightly earlier then about the recruitment process in that clip there. We heard about how, I mean, he said he will have the final say on things, but he will build like a team around him with the likes of Andy Scott and obviously Jim Millwall doing the bits he has to do with regards to it, and there will be no one big ego that sort of leads it. But again, the title of manager suggests to me that he's going to be much more at the forefront of that, and given the squads he has built, particularly at Luton, then I don't really have a problem with that at all.
Neither do I. No, I think if you're a club that has an established recruitment structure in place and you get similar managers in to meet that structure, then I think that's okay. But when you have a kid in Belgium, followed by the owner's son, followed by a bloke coming in who has a relatively good reputation, but doesn't seem to have cut the mustard over the first couple of transfer windows he's had, then you're all over the place, right? So you need somebody who actually knows what they're doing. And I would suggest, like you, that Nathan Jones is that man based on his own experience. So managers aren't necessarily, although maybe at this level more so, but not necessarily like they used to be in terms of running every element of the club. But at the same time, if Nathan Jones has a good history of recruitment, then he should be given that say. So yeah, I think, look, we've had, the Gall and Bowyer years where there was a little collective, which again was only 2 or 3 years, but there was a group of people there who overall tended to bring in some decent players when, again, they didn't have to report to certain others or wouldn't let others overrule them. So I think in our situation, then I think this is the right call. He's a man who's proven that he can do it in the past and is doing it again. And you look at, it depends who he brings in, right? You look at the previous manager was bringing in players that he had worked with before. That's not necessarily a bad thing if you're looking at the long term. But I wonder, given how our December had gone and coming into January, whether that was the right call because writing had been on the wall. So, yeah, I think it's probably the right call. I don't know if it was him or whether somebody in the chat had said, look, the head coach experiment hasn't worked. I think you're probably right under the previous head coach that it was. I don't think that as a structure necessarily fails unless, provided you've got the right people in the right jobs. And at the moment, I don't think we do. So at the moment, we need a manager who's in control of that stuff, who can bring in the right players, who can hopefully pick the right players, which I think has been a large problem. And as I say, our short-term goal is very clear, isn't it? And that's about getting clear of the relegation zone.
Yeah, there we go. Right. Homeowner saying there have been about 5 high-profile managers who have gone to Stoke after Jones, who've all end up sacked and in lower mid-table. I don't read too much into that at that time. Yeah, that's certainly how I feel about that. Dean's asking if I have a haircut every time Charlton get a new manager. It's the second person to reference my haircut. I've been walking. I had this over a week ago, and I'm still thinking that is really short. The bloke definitely didn't do what I asked for, so I've asked for the same thing every time for about 15 years. And this time it's come out incredibly short. We should mention some really good news. Darren Carnew signing a new deal. Lewis, I think that was announced yesterday, wasn't it? There's a great interview with Dan on the club website. I've been really impressed with how he's come on this season, and I'm not saying he's a finished article, and I'm not saying he should be starting every week yet. But there were times when he's come on in the past where he's still looked a little bit lightweight. And he, I'm not, like I say, he's not the finished article now, but he has. I've clearly seen an improvement this year. We sort of saw it with Miles when he first came in at the start of last season. Even though he was picking up the odd goal, you could see over the course of the season he grew into his body and that sort of stuff, whatever they say. And I've seen that with Dan this year. And considering the amount of goals he has got in, obviously, academy football and that, I'm really glad that we've secured his services for a few years now.
100%. Yeah, he's another high profile success of our brilliant academy. He's obviously been sort of on the minds of Charlton fans for a while because of how many goals he was scoring at sort of the youth level and playing in those youth teams. And we've always, I think, all been really excited to see him step up into the first team. And over the last couple of seasons, we've seen him in sort of, little dribs and drabs where he's kind of impressed, but as you say, has looked a little bit lightweight, looked like a young player that's been dropped out of youth football into adult football. I think we've been in pretty crappy positions a lot of the time as well when he's come in. It's not an easy side to come into at the moment. But yeah, this season especially, I agree with you. I think when he has come in, I've noticed a lot more impact from him. Like I feel like he's brought a lot more to games. I thought even on against Derby when he came on in that second half, we saw an impact from him immediately, and he's playing with 2 very experienced EFL forwards in Alfie and Freddie Ladapo. So, I think it's great news for the football club to secure his services, to reward Dan for his hard work, especially, and hopefully we see him kick on even more. I did think he needed another loan at one point because of just because I think the Southend spell he had a pretty good run of it. Then he scored 4 in one game, didn't he? But that sort of experience is key for players of that age. We've seen it with lots of our young players. They've gone out, had these loans and come back and been a lot more up for it, in terms of playing in like the proper adult football. So yeah, look, it's great news for us. Hope we see Dan kick on. And yeah, back end of the season, he's got every chance of getting himself a spot in the side, because maybe haven't seen it from Freddie Ladapo yet, and Alfie's going to need the support. Miles is out for the rest of the season, obviously, and we don't know when Chucks is back, so there is that opportunity there for Dan to come in and try and make an impact. So yeah, hopefully we see him a little bit more between now and the end of the season.
Bob says, I think Nathan Jones will be much more hands-on rather than hands in pocket. Love that. After, of course, Michael Appleton was somewhat disparaged for keeping his hands in his pocket, which I was never that offended by. If he wants to do that, that's fine. But I do think Nathan will be a lot more fun on the touchline. Just talking about strikers, we just very briefly mentioned Patrick Casey with a brace last night against Welling in the London Senior Cup. So the next Dan Carney's only a couple of years behind Tom. I mean, hopefully that's another one we'll get to see a bit more of in future years. I know he's come off the bench at least once this season, hasn't he? But yeah, that was good. And the boys through in the London Senior Cup, they're going to be playing Barking in the next round, which is good development for them.
Yeah, definitely. And again, if we can steer clear of the relegation zone with a few games to spare, that's the opportunity to give those boys another run out, isn't it? I think Casey was kind of firefighted in because of our injury troubles, which goes back to that wider point. Same with Carnu, really, was recalled because of the injuries. I think Carnu has looked, as Lewis said, okay when he's come on. I think he's looked effective, certainly more so than the Ladapo, who I will say probably is just struggling for fitness a little bit. But yeah, and Casey's the same. We've said this certainly ever since I've been on the pod. You just want to be able to blood these youngsters when you want, not when you need to. And if Casey can have a bit more time at that level, I think that's good for him. I think Carnu is clearly a little way ahead in his progression. You saw what he did at Southend, albeit at a lower level, but scoring goals for fun. And I think he's capable. Look, what did he play? First 2 or 3 games of this season and got a couple of goals. So we were utilising him at the start of the season, and he was proving he could do it in a slightly better performing team. So yeah, although we only got 1 win, I think, in that time. But yeah, I think that sort of conveyor belt of players has been there certainly as long as I can remember, and it's encouraging that that's still happening. So Casey's going to look at Carnu and see that he's made it into the team. Carnu was probably looking at Leeburn and seeing that he got in the team. If you can keep that momentum up, there's always opportunities here. You just always want it to be through choice and not through necessity. So yeah, I think Jones still needs to bring strikers in the summer and then be able to blood these youngsters as and when he wants to, not because he has to.
Excellent. Right, we're going to have a break. When we come back, we will turn our attention to Saturday's trip over to Reading. Thinking about a new kitchen or bathroom? Find professional, independent local installers with free home surveys, itemised quotes and protected payments, trading standards approved contracts, and workmanship warranties. The British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom, Bathroom Installations accredits installers to ensure they are police checked, fully insured, and experienced. Take the risk out of home improvement. Visit bikbbi.org.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the River. See you soon.
Right, welcome back to Charlton Live. This is the big match preview. We're gearing up for Saturday's huge game over at Reading. The Royals sitting just below us in the table. They're just outside the relegation zone after they beat Stevenage on Tuesday night. The beneficiaries of an own goal, I believe. Yeah, there's a couple of questions about... Dean's asked, what system does Jones play? Because I was reading something the other day that people say he's really good at sort of switching things up. So we might not really know exactly what he's got in mind for us until we see the starting lineup on Saturday, which will be really interesting. Will he come away from the back three that we started playing towards the end of Appleton's tenure and that Curtis continued with? Will we go to a 4 or a diamond, or who knows what he's going to do? We'll find out in due course. But I want to find out a little bit more about Saturday's host, Reading. So I spoke to Matt Lansley from the Elm Park Royals. This was on last night, Wednesday evening, just to find out a little bit about Ruben Sellers' side. Well, we're joined by Matt Lansley from the Elm Park Royals podcast to look ahead to Saturday's game over at Reading. Matt, thanks for joining us. When we spoke earlier on in the season, obviously we did have to speak about the off-field issues at Reading. They are still ongoing. So before we get into the footballing side of things, do you want to just give us an update on where you guys are with Dai Young, and also what the Reading fans have got planned for this Saturday?
Where are we with Dai Young? Oh, that's a good question. So it's deteriorated since obviously we last played you earlier in the season. I think it was around October time we played you guys. I think there was hope of a sale kind of coming towards the middle of November. That never materialized. There were offers on the table. They were taken, but then terms were changed at the last minute. Seemingly Dai Young decided to change his mind on pretty much everything that was agreed, and that meant deals fell through. And wages weren't being paid. Cutbacks were being made at the training ground. You've probably all seen the stories around what's happened at the training ground, heating being switched off, catering staff not being paid, and hence why the catering staff ended up going, meaning there's no food at the training ground anymore. It's just been a slow deterioration, really. And just obviously a continuation of what's really happened before. It's looking a little bit more positive now. There's renewed hope of a sale in the next couple of months. Nigel Howe, former chief executive, has come back into the club to almost, I guess, lead the sale process. Only caveat to that being is that he's been involved in the last 3 sales of Reading FC, which were to Anton Zingarevich, the Thai owners, and Dai Young, none of which went particularly well. So it's just desperation stations, really. I think as Charlton fans will know from experience at this point, it's a horrible position to be in, because you would just take anyone really at this state or at this stage, because it's almost survival of the club over anything. Protests that have kind of come to this stage, it all got to a head really at the Port Vale game, which obviously culminated in a pitch invasion, and obviously the game being abandoned. That was almost a last cry for help, really, because seemingly after Dai Young decided to turn down or change all the offers that were on the table to him, he seemingly went incognito, as he seemingly likes to do. Wasn't listening to anyone, wasn't listening to offers, and it was kind of, well, at this rate, we're just going to end up, going under and potentially being liquidated. That was how kind of serious it was, because players weren't being paid. Players had started to be sold in January as well, behind the sporting director and managers back. That was kind of the final breaking point. And that's what obviously led to the Port Vale pitch invasion. We have had a bit of a smack on the wrist from the EFL, obviously, from that. They've obviously given us a 3-point suspended points deduction for if we cause another match abandonment through fan trouble. So it's unlikely, very unlikely, probably not impossible there'd be a pitch invasion this weekend, so don't worry on that front. The protests have kind of changed more to just embarrassing Dai Young and Dai Young Pang, the current CEO, as much as possible. So there's a clown day protest really this weekend. So you'll probably see a lot of people in Dai Young face masks, clown wigs, and everything like that. So just trying to have a bit of gallows humor, really, to be honest, because that's kind of the stage that we're at. You've just got to try and have a bit of fun and have a bit of a laugh at the end of the day, whilst trying to cause a bit of embarrassment for the owner.
Well, hopefully there'll be a resolution in the way that the Reading fans wish for, sooner rather than later. Like I said, we've been through similar ourselves. So best of luck. Obviously, on the field of play, Tuesday's win at Stevenage, brought you onto level points with us. So, any Charlton fans who've been naive and thought we weren't going to get sucked into this relegation battle have found out the hard way, myself included, really, that we are well in it now. And yourselves, you've really played your way back. There's only 1 defeat in 11, only 4 wins at that time, obviously a lot of draws. But yeah, it really feels like Reading have turned a corner sort of since the start of December. Is that fair? Are you playing much better now?
Yeah, most fans look back to the Shrewsbury game where we were winning 2-1 up until the 92nd minute, and then ended up losing that game 3-2, courtesy of, I think it was 96th minute winner in the end. That game we were playing much better anyway. We shouldn't have lost that game. That was kind of a freak loss. It was from 2 set pieces. If you've played Shrewsbury this year or seen them play, they're not the best going forwards and not the best kind of in the attacking third. the only way they were going to win that game was through a set piece and kind of defensive mishaps, and they got one in the first half and obviously 2 corners at the very end of the game. But we played well that game, and more importantly, Sellers had changed shape up to that point, because we were playing almost a 4-2-2-2 up to that point. This kind of, I guess you'd call like Geigen press type of formation, but it was just a car crash. Sellers changed it up though, changed to a 4-1-4-1 formation, or a 4-3-3, depends how you look at it when the players are attacking. And since then, the team's become much more resolute. We're not losing many games anymore. That was a big problem back at the start of the season. Obviously, we went, I think it was 9 away games consistently losing, and we weren't getting any draws. That's what's kind of changed of late. And when you're getting draws, you're constantly picking up points. You start to close the gap to those in front of you and chuck in some of the wins of late. Confidence really started growing in the early part of January, I'd say, because we had a good Christmas period. We got a good point away at Peterborough. But then we kicked off the year well against Exeter and had a 2-week pretty much break, obviously, over the FA Cup period. There was the stuff behind the scenes, obviously, that was going on at that time as well. Players being sold. But there's seemingly been a togetherness that's really brewed in this team of late. You've had some key players in that. Harvey Nibbs has been one of them. Sam Smith, even though he's not scored since that Peterborough game, has been crucial in the upturn of form. Lewis Wing and Femi Aziz as well. Those 4 players really have become almost critical to this team now going forwards. And wins against Derby and Stevenage last night, draws against Leyton Orient and Oxford. You know, when you look at the table, we've played Derby, who I think is second in the table, Stevenage, who are 6th, Oxford 7th, and Leyton Orient, who are 9th, and got 8 points off the back of that. So it's really brewed some confidence within the fan base. And I think a lot of fans are a lot more hopeful maybe than we were, a few months back when we were 10 points adrift in the relegation.
Yeah, I'm just looking ahead to Saturday then. So we've sold out our allocation. Excuse me, I dropped my mic. Our allocation there at the Select Car Leasing Stadium, which it appears to be called now. How do you see Saturday going? You're 5 unbeaten at home. You are on a good run. We're not. We're winless in 12 now, I think it is. We have the last clean sheet we kept was when we beat you at home back in October. So that's 18 games without a clean sheet.
Oh.
So I mean, how are you sort of approaching this game on Saturday?
Yeah, I don't have many good memories from that game back at your place. I got very drunk beforehand, and I ended up having a vegan sausage roll because they were all out of food at about 30 minutes. I was like, what? And it tasted like a chair leg. The less that I remember about that day, the better. But I mean, at home, we've been so much better than we have been away. I think like with you guys, we'd only won 1 game before Stevenage away this season. You could even look back to kind of the end of November or before the winter break last season for our win before then, before this season. Went over a year without a win, but home form has been really, really good this season. I think we're 8th in the form table when we're at home. But expectations for this weekend, I think you could pick an answer out of the hat. It's the new manager kind of feel. Charlton will be on a feel good kind of factor from that. Nathan Jones, everyone knows what he's obviously done at Luton. I think it's still to be seen if he can do that outside of Luton, if he was just right place, right man for that club. Obviously his time at Stoke and Southampton, you could maybe say that, there were basket case situations at both clubs, but yeah, like I think the win midweek against Stevenage takes a bit less pressure off obviously Reading to get a win this weekend. I think most fans would probably be happy with a draw, just to keep those points ticking over and accumulating points obviously for safety. But saying that, I think a lot of fans would probably think, well, why not? If we can beat the likes of Derby and Stevenage in recent weeks, that some fans might look and think 3 points is realistic at the weekend. But it's new. It's a new manager. It's a new team. Anything could really happen. Obviously, you've got one of the best strikers in the league in Alfie May. So, if I was going to predict something, if we were to get a draw, I'd be content. So yeah, I think I'd take a point at the weekend.
There we go. That's Matt Lansley from the Elm Park Royals pod who give us the lowdown on Ruben Sellers' side. I swear, every team we play at the moment, even if we somehow played someone who was absolutely rock bottom, they still would have lost 1 in 10 or something ridiculous. Tom, we just can't seem to shake off playing sides who are having a decent bit of form one way or another, and which is going to play a massive part on Saturday, because we will have the new manager boost, which, you know, whether you think that's real or not, Nathan Jones feels like the sort of bloke who's going to provide something like that. But we are against the side that are looking good at the moment, and even with what looks set to be a bit of a fire sale in January, didn't sell as many as some predicted, and still seems to be picking up results. I mean, that was only their second away win in literally like a year and a bit on Tuesday, which means they've now got more away wins than we do, because we've only had 1 all season.
Ridiculous, isn't it? Can you imagine what the other teams are like? Because they must play us and be like, right, they're in a bad run of form. They've lost 150 in a row. And then they come to play us in the reverse fixture and they're like, oh, they're still on that same run, are they? They've now lost 250 in a row. Whereas we seem to have the complete opposite. So, yeah, I've gone from the start of this season, which I still maintain that this league's awful, to us coming up against teams who seem to be playing like Pep's Man City every single week. So, yeah, it's. I think we've got to the stage of the season now where even if the other team aren't very good, it doesn't make the game very easy. Partly because of the state we're in and the form we're on, but partly because we're down there and teams down there now are scrapping for their lives. So, this stage of the season, you're very rarely coming up against a team that are playing for nothing, and sadly, that's not even us now. So, yeah, obviously, a lot of the fixtures in this part of the month we're playing, or sorry, this part of the season we're playing teams that are fighting for promotion, and then we've got a couple down there as well who are fighting to avoid relegation. So every game it feels like has got something riding on it. So even if the team themselves aren't playing well, which Reading have picked up a bit, so even that in itself is, you know, they are. It's just a bit cagey and it's a bit, you know, it's a bit tense, and any mistake. And we love a mistake this season is amplified because the potential consequences of that mistake are so much more. I agree with you. I feel like Nathan Jones is somebody who, with his, I don't know, touchline antics seems negative, and I don't mean it like that, but with how he will be in terms of his passion on the touchline, and backed by just a phenomenal amount of away fans, the atmosphere is going to be great. You know, I was just saying there, wasn't I, in our chat, you know, I went away to Burton. There was a few hundred of us there, and we didn't have much to sing about. And you've got Apples there with his hands in his pockets, and that's when something like that does count against you, because if you've got Nathan Jones there screaming at his players to put some effort in, and players then go and put a massive tackle in or whatever, it does change the atmosphere in the crowd. So everything seems a little bit more aligned amongst the fans and the players, certainly in that last game at Northampton as the players went off. And certainly with the fans and the manager, although obviously he's now got a lot to then go and prove on the pitch. But it's going to be a hell of an atmosphere there, and I think that will play a big part in what's going to potentially be a very cagey game because the stakes are so high.
Yeah, I mean, all hell let loose is asking if I'd accept a draw on Saturday, or says, do we need to go there and win and then risk losing? I mean, the only thing I will say is, you know, a draw means they won't overtake us and all that, but don't forget our fixtures coming up over the next few weeks are very difficult. So we've got Lincoln at home on Tuesday, but then we're away to Bolton, home to Pompey, and away to Derby. I mean, they're all very difficult games for us. So maybe if we were going into a fairly standard run of fixtures, maybe a draw would be okay, but I'm just very wary of what's coming up behind, and we really can't afford to, you know, get left adrift if we go on to lose the next 3 games after the Lincoln game, which is very possible because there's some good sides we're going to play. Right, let's hear from the Addicts boss once more. This includes the injury update ahead of the trip to Reading on Saturday. This was Terry speaking to Nathan Jones earlier on today.
Hard work, and I'm sure that's true, and the guys have already mentioned the precarious position we're in. The stats show that, and the stats, we can score goals. We're in the top 10 for that, but we concede as well, and we're in the top 3 for that. Is that a short-term focus, where your short-term focus has to be to improve that?
Whatever we got to do to win games is a focus. So if we can keep clean sheets, outwork opposition and score goals, then we'll be fine.
One particular painful aspect of our season so far has been our injuries to key players. People like Miles Lieberman, Panish Kamara, Chiksanike, Michael Hector now, all fairly long-term, and more recently George Dobson. Is there any news you can give us on ahead of Saturday about those injuries?
Well, it's not as grim as you just painted it there. So we're in a better position than that, with pretty much, apart from Miles Lieber, everyone else is back in training.
Cool, perfect. We visit Reading, below us in the table, obviously, but in good form. We'll be backed by 3,000, Alex, and you mentioned before about having a connection. I think the fans are already bought into that. I think 3,000 travelling fans in the position we're in is a phenomenal thing, and you can ask for a better reaction from the Charlton fans.
Oh, absolutely. But again, without being flippant, you do expect it because they're a great group of fans. You know, it's not suddenly like 3,000 have turned up. 3,000 have turned up in the past plenty of times, and it's a wonderful fan base here and really good. And it's a working class fan base, and I say that with the greatest respect, because I'm working class myself. And as I said, I'd like to build them something that they can be really, really proud of. But no, sadly, if we win the game, if we draw the game, if we lose the game, look, it wasn't just built in 1 week. I'm hoping for a real reaction from the players and a positive one. But you know, we're 4 days effectively into building something. So it's important that they see certain things that they can relate to, certain things that they say, okay, yeah, I see where we're going, and then we can build it from there.
There you go. That's Nathan Jones then, looking ahead to his first game in charge as we make the trip over to Reading on Saturday. Lewis, it would have been his first opportunity to look at the team. I mean, just chucking in a few of the comments that people have made up in the chat. People are asking the question about the goalkeeper. Some people were suggesting maybe he might put Louis Watson in to start. I mean, when you go into a new side, obviously he's had the full week to look at them. Thankfully, no midweek game for us this week, but it must be quite difficult to go in and assess what you think, how you think you can set up in your first game without having seen them properly in the flesh in a proper competitive game.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? And you think it's only really a week that he's been given to sort of sit and coach with them. And is he going to make any drastic changes to the system at this stage? I don't know. Like, will they just persist with the current system we're playing and make little tweaks to try and improve it, or will they go for a complete new system? I think Nathan Jones, a lot of his success has come from playing a diamond, which we've obviously seen previously with Bowyer, and we've got enough midfielders to play it, and a lack of wingers. So it'd be interesting to see if that's something that he looks to implement, going back to 4 at the back and playing a diamond and utilising some of those midfielders. It's going to be a really tough contest, isn't it? I think it's a massive result. I mean, speaking about it earlier, as you said, could we afford to draw it? I don't think we can, really. I think you've got to start strong. You've got to start off with this winning mentality. The next 2 games are probably the most winnable of the next few. So you want to be looking at Reading away, taking some points from that, going into Lincoln, hopefully with some confidence back on home soil at the Valley, and try and get maximum points out of that before, an incredibly tough trip to Bolton, who are flying high at the moment. We don't have a huge amount of luck up there either. So we want to be trying to get our points where we can. And I think on paper, really, Reading and Lincoln are going to be the winnable games. I always fancy us against Pompey. We could be the worst team in the world. Going through our worst run of form, we'd still manage to beat Portsmouth somehow. So maybe that'll be one as well. But I think ultimately, Jones as well is the sort of character. He's going to be going all out for that win, because it would just kick off such a positive bit of momentum. First win in God knows how long. It's definitely what we need. I wouldn't be overly disappointed with the draw, but I think the momentum that we need at the moment, we've got to be going for all 3 points and trying to take that into Tuesday, and get back-to-back wins if we can.
Yeah, Ian's asking if Curtis Fleming is still involved. Yeah, he's still been down there this week. Yeah, I mean, Andrew's saying we've got to play to win as we can't defend, and obviously he mentioned there briefly at the top of it that we need to start keeping clean sheets. Everyone knows. I almost shot myself when I looked it up before I spoke to Matt yesterday. There's 18 games without a clean sheet in the league now, which is just it's embarrassing. Really, there's no other way of putting it. So he'll be very eager to try and sort that out. Spoke about injuries. He spoke about basically everyone being in full training, other than Miles Lieber, Tom. So that would include the likes of Chukwuemeka. At what point will he be introduced back into the squad? Dobbo, who missed last week, as I said, he's not going to come out and say yes, George Dobson's fit enough to start Saturday. He's not going to be one of those managers who's going to give us a lot of detail, but he's given us a bit of an update there. So some selection headaches, starting I guess with Chucks. if he's getting close to being in a position where he can come off for the bench for 20 minutes. I mean, I would suggest we never start him again, personally. But yeah, he could literally be a difference between us staying up and going down this season.
You could argue pretty much our entire season has been basically him. Like when we've been good, he's been playing. When we've been bad, he hasn't. It almost. I know that's probably slightly too simplistic, but it's not far off, is it? Because Holden, I don't think ever had him. Appleton had him and did well, and then lost him and did badly. And now you can see him coming back, and you know the difference he's going to make. It wouldn't be a surprise if he plays 60 minutes over the next 3 games, so 20 minutes in each game. You could probably see him getting a goal or an assist or a contribution of some sort in all 3. And if you get 6 or 7 points out of those instead of 3 or 4, could be huge come the end of the season. So yeah, I think that's important. I think the goalkeeper question is the right one to be asking. I think the question around Louis Watson is the right one to be asking. I said a bit earlier, I think a large part of Michael's downfall was his inability, as far as I could see it, to pick the right players in the right positions and drop the right players when he needed to, personally. So yeah, he has got a selection headache because, as we've all kind of said, when this squad is fully fit, there's some good players in there, and Miles sadly is one of them, and obviously he's not going to be available. But Chuks, if you can get 20 minutes out of him, huge. I think Louis Watson, when he's played, I know Joe put some graphs up earlier in the season in terms of the impact he's made in games that we've done well in. Again, huge. I think the goalkeeper one is just one that just keeps on running, and I don't know we know the answer yet because Eisted didn't get long enough in the side, but Ash certainly looks short on confidence and isn't instilling confidence in the back line. I think that is definitely clear. Whether you change him or not is a big call, but it may turn out to be the right one. So yeah, I think there's enough in there for him to be excited by, and there is probably the midfield there, as Lewis says, to play a diamond. You've got Coventry and Dobson, and we've been talking about how they play too similar. Well, if you play a diamond, could one of them push up? Does May play in the 10 or does Louis Watson? There are options there within that midfield. And I guess the one part where we're still struggling, although maybe a couple of the new boys coming in, is the wing-back position. If you're relying on those wing-backs, I just don't think Tanai Watson is good enough, and I don't think Eden on the other side shows it consistently enough. And so if you are looking for width and you're looking for those players to do it, that continues to be a bit of an issue at the moment. But I'm excited. I'm excited. It's the eve of a new manager. It's a manager that we're all behind, whereas I don't think Apple's probably ever had that. And yeah, if we can get off to a fast start, if we were to get an early goal, that away end is bouncing. You'd imagine even if things don't start that well, that away end is gonna be good. And that's the thing now. We've all got to just back him, back the players, whatever we think of some of them, and we've just got to get our way through to the end of the season now, maintain this status in League One and go again next year.
Yeah, George saying that if Chuks can stay fit for half the games we have left, we will stay up. And Michael's saying, his best season for us was when Bowyer just used him as a super sub. He had the vision. Referenced all throughout the show about how the fans are really backing the side at the moment with the tickets they've sold. I know that a lot of fans are going to wear red after sort of Fans for Fans put something on social media. The club arranged with Uni of Greenwich that we're going to wear red as well. Sort of a whole unity reset thing, which I'm not going to sit here and say overall the team deserve it, but they need it. We all need this to be a proper reset for us. And the fans are going to be. I'm really looking forward to Saturday because I just know it's going to be absolute class from our lot. Whenever we sell out an away end, it's going to be noisy, and there will be this togetherness. And if we can get that last minute winner, Lou, Nathan Jones whips the top off. He's in the away end with the boys. It's going to be amazing if we can get that. We just have to get it right on the pitch Saturday. This could really be a big turning point for us.
Well, what a weekend that'd be, eh? It'd be unbelievable. But yeah, you're right. It's this club moves best when it's united and everyone's pulling in the same direction. We've seen numerous times how strong this fan base is. Even last season, I know it was United in a cup game, but taking that many midweek to Old Trafford and generating that noise and out singing 70-odd thousand, just think what we can do with 3,000 at the Madstad. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be one hell of an atmosphere. The excitement around Nathan Jones is just going to build to it, and I think him as a character as well. Like as you say, if we do get a result, we do win that game, and you've got 3,000 fans, and he's over, punching his chest and hands in the air and everything, and all the players. It's going to be amazing, and that could be the lift that we really need. it all sounds a little bit too good to be true in my head. Like, I'm trying not to hype it up too much in my head and just think, I can't wait for 5 o'clock on Saturday. Nathan Jones can be doing like a belly slide towards the away end, and Peacock's going to have his top off and all sorts, but it's not going to happen. So, I'm trying not to get too excited. If that does happen, amazing. But I think let's get the football out of the way first. And ultimately, all we can do as supporters, and I know that we will do it, is, absolutely sing our hearts out for 90 minutes and try and suck that ball into the net as much as we can, and try and kick on from here, try and restart our season and ride the Nathan Jones wave.
Yeah, just for any confusion now, I assume that Lewis was referring to his mate Peacock. If Lewis's mate Peacock takes his top off, that would sort of take the edge off for me. If Keith Peacock takes his top off with Nathan Jones, jumps that would the season over. I think we call it a day there. It would have been a successful campaign as far as I'm concerned. Right, we've run out of time on Charlton Live. Thanks to everyone who's joined us live on the live stream. Make sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel so you never miss another live show. Or you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts as well if you want to catch up via the podcast afterwards. We'll be back on Sunday, 10 a.m. To look back at Nathan Jones's first game in charge. So make sure you join us then. Big thanks to Matt Lansley from the Elm Park Royals, who gave us a preview of the game from their point of view. Massive thanks as well to Tom and Lewis. Good to speak to you chaps as always.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, lads.
So I'm Louis Mendes. This has been Charlton Live, sponsored by the British Institute of Kitchen, Bedroom and Bathroom Installation. We shall see you all again on Sunday morning.
Charlton Live.